29th of July, 1996. Monday night, North Sydney Oval, Bears, Sharks. 78th minute. In the shadows of the Super League war, the ARL aligned and prolific preliminary finalists, the 1990s North Sydney Bears side, are looking to beat Super League assigned Cronulla for the first time since 1991 and the first time at home since 1987. Paul Green, setting for a field goal, is tackled on the set's second last play. Noted game breaker and Super League poster boy Andrew Eddingshausen is at first receiver right at the ruck. 40 metres out, with 0 field goals to his name across 14 seasons in the top grade, ET sets for the field goal. He strikes it well. He hits it sweetly. He's got the height. He's got the length. It's a monster. Will ET break Bear hearts? Surely there's no time if he misses. Welcome to another episode of Classic Cronulla Chronicles. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the ET Stand, the Cronulla Sharks fan podcast, where we let our talking do the football. Tonight, we've got another episode of Classic Cronulla Chronicles as we head into this week's round 2024 match against the Redcliffe Dolphins at Shark Park. We have 0 history against them. Okay, 1 match, a loss in Magic Round last year. It'll take us a while to get a history against them. So what we're going to do is we're going to look back at some matches against teams that no longer exist. I know this team is our co-host tonight, David Boldo, is quite fond of. We wanted to look at this team. We'll talk about that in a sec. I wanted to cover the Crushers, but we don't have the footage for those matches yet. So NRL, we're coming for you. Get a better back archive. We'll have to do some moving and shaking there. But before we rip into this one, this is an absolute cracker. It's available on Kayo. It's from 1996. If you look up Kayo Rugby League Classics 1990s, round 17, 1996. If you want to hit pause, go watch it. Go watch the full 80. Come back, listen to Rabs' dulcet tones, Fatty, Sterlo and Blocker on a Monday night, and then come back and enjoy this rollicking, fun little trip down memory lane that we're going to go through. Please do come back and enjoy. David, 1996, one of your favourite seasons, I know. What are your thoughts?
Possibly my favourite season period, really.
Yeah,
it's quite striking. You're right, Matty. Anyone who hasn't seen this match, do yourself a favour and look, we'll put it in the comments in the description. Do yourself a favour and go rewatch this match. It is a terrific time in rugby league. A couple of things that were striking from the play. The line speed is not as fast as it is today. How deep the Sharks play from scrum-based moves and a whole bunch of other moments in the match, especially with Paul Green and the runarounds and those parts of it. And also the defence in and behind marker tends to be quite a common way in this era of rugby league for teams to unlock other teams. But I just remember the North Sydney Bears team of the 1990s. They were so popular and very similar to the Sharks team of today, really, in terms of the players that they've got, and they're not quite the absolute out-and-out stars of rugby league, but they're pretty good. You know, Jason Taylor had won the Rothmans medal the year before. He was a top point scorer. Played a sprinkling of Origin matches, but never really got a chance. Florimosi, a whole bunch of other guys. And this was also a Monday night match. So this was the era of when the Monday night matches started. I believe they started during the middle of the year. So this was one of the earlier Monday night matches. But yeah, what a great Sharks team. And our image here to where Nico, he had a great game as well. So yeah, this could be our longest Chronicles ever because.
Well, there's only a few tries in it. It's not like it's the 0-1 shellacking against the Bulldogs where we put 52 points on, but we have been known to talk for an hour about a match against the Storm with 1 try. So you're right, there was not as much line speed, but also the ruck interference was basically non-existent. You are correct as well. Paul Green, Mitch Healy wraparounds were the flavour of the month and the flavour of the decade, I reckon, with Peachy chiming into the line, ET playing left and right centre, just floating around everywhere. It was just dynamite play from a entertaining side against a team in the Bears that they made multiple prelims during the 90s. You're right, they didn't quite cut it in the top echelon to convert it into a premiership, unfortunately for them. And I do feel for them because they're no longer in the top grade and they're obviously hopeful to come back. And I know that how we'd be feeling if we were in their shoes. So it is interesting.
What did they make They made the 91 prelim They were eliminated by the Raiders in the Sears send-off match with John Lomax and Gary Larson got sent off in 1994. 97, they were thereabouts in the ARL comp, and in this comp, they got knocked out too, which we'll talk about.
And they kind of
terrific
away
stadium, North Sydney Oval.
Yeah, it was your local hunting ground, stopping ground
now.
for a while there.
Local
these days.
now. Yeah, I never went to see the North Sydney Bears play other than a reserve grade match of the Sharks versus the Bears. Didn't really give me the same feeling. So anyway, let's get into it, Matty. How good?
Yeah, let's roll in. We'll have a look at the a bit of the next slides anyway. I'll let you hit the buttons there if you've got control.
There we go.
Yeah, so we've got a new logo for the Bears. Sorry, that's the modern day reserve grade one, but they are a foundation club. You'll see they're 1908 North Sydney Bears. We had a very good history against them overall. Rabs does refer to it in his commentary, and overall speaking, looking at the record against them, we'll just re-pick that up there. Was dominant. We'd won, I think, 31-16 as this match being played, and the overall ended up being 36-16. So, as I say in the intro, we hadn't lost them since 1991, where they beat us at home. They also hadn't beat us at Bear Park since 1987, and there hadn't been a match there in 3 years. They were talking about due to, I suppose, the scheduling of it all. 1995, the ARL expanded to 20 teams. I mentioned as well that the Super League war was starting, so just as the 95 season kicked off, all of that moving and shaking occurred. The 96 season was supposed to be a split comp. It didn't happen. So the Sharks and all the other Super League aligned clubs had to forfeit their first round matches, and then
wasn't there that decision that got handed down just before the first week? So there's a clip. We should put that in the comments as well. There's a
if you
got to get handed down like a couple of days beforehand, and there's Peter Overton and a few others on the Channel 9 giving the report, and you can see they talk about the different verdicts. All right, well, if the Super League wins and they launch they launch a separate competition. If the RL teams win, then the Super League teams will not play round one, and then they will play round two.
Yeah, and I think having listened to the Super League War podcast and the Rugby League Digest over a long period of time, I think they had a 7-year run covering the entire period. It's an enormous amount of work and research into that. They were talking about how there was an initial win for the Super League, and they were going to start their season in 96, and there was an injunction and then an appeal, and then it ended up being that, just on the eve of the kickoff that ARL won. And banned the other clubs from moving across, and the 1996 ARL season went ahead. We'll slide next to the next slide and have a look at the form going into it. So, ironically, both sides had identical form going in with 2 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw. Obviously, pre-Golden Point era for those people that can remember that. Golden Point came in 2003. And so we'd lost, Ray Warren does mention in the commentary that we lost in the final minute at home to the Broncos. I don't remember this match. I don't think I was there, but we went down 15-12 in that one. We beat the Raiders, who were pretty highly fancied during that period. Obviously, premiers in 94, still had a very good side. 24-16, we won that one in Canberra. We beat the Bulldogs at home 16-6. We had a draw with the St George Dragons, no Illawarra in that side at the time, just St George on their own, 20-all. And
they're also a very good team.
They were a good side. They would eventually make the grand final that year against Manly, and we lost to the Cowboys 16-10. So that was the Cowboys' lone win over us for a long period of time. That was up in North Queensland. So we had some checkered form in there, while the Bears, they do make mention, they'd given up a last-minute try to Matthew Johns, your favourite, the week before to draw 14-all with the Knights. They lost to the Roosters 25-30. You'll see some strange scores here in that the Bears had a penchant for kicking field goals through Jason Taylor, as we've seen this one. So they went down 25-30 to the Roosters.
Which was very common at the time.
In that time, yeah.
The field goals. Taking the one to get ahead by 7, put a bit more. It's just different scoreboard pressure. You see it later in the semi-finals when it happens to one of the teams of this season, that they go down by a point, and then when the other team gets 7 and then 13 ahead, there's this difference between 13 and 12 is just so big, psychologically and
you look at players like Jason Taylor and even like around that time, John Simon, even Joey Johns, they had huge amounts of field goals. And I suppose teams were very used to setting and getting position there. Noel Goldthorpe, you're right. The guys that would just peak like between 5 and 10 field goals a season, compared to these days, I suppose, where you look at some halves that have only scored 1 or 2 field goals, which seems quite foreign. So 20-18 over the Eels, they had a 48-18 win over the Illawarra Steelers, who were having one of their down years, and they lost to their local rivals, bitter rivals Manly, 29 points to 6. So went into this one. It was a Monday night. You did make mention of that. The Monday night games had started around that time. Channel 9 had the coverage. I was only about 9 years old when this game was on, so I missed it at the time. I think I maybe saw highlights I remember hearing the result, but I do remember hearing that, or maybe even seeing during school holidays, Channel 9 had the coverage, but they showed it very late. They showed it at like 9:30 on a Monday night, probably a condensed version with a ridiculous amount of ads, and you finally found out the result close to midnight. So different time period watching matches there. But so Monday night, much touted. They had 16,500 in at North Sydney Oval, which is pretty close to capacity there. It looked like a very...
There were some gaps. They can get more than that.
Yeah, I think it's about 20,000, about 20. But
20. Still
a big showing, a very vocal Bears strong crowd. But there's quite a few Sharks fans in the stands as well. At full time, you'll see what happens. But yeah, there's any particular thoughts on that run of games? Do you remember any of those particular matches?
I remember beating the Raiders.
Yeah,
and I just remember actually just the school rivalries, having gone to a non-Shire school.
Yeah, true.
Just the rivalries between there were a couple of North Sydney fans. There was a Broncos guy. There was a Raiders guy. There were a lot of St. George characters. There was Bulldogs guys. There was no Cowboys. And so I just remember each week there would be a notable kind of rivalry that you would come up against.
Yeah.
And then I do remember the heartbreak of that Broncos. And then, yeah, who knew the Raiders were actually going to start to not be so good in that time as well, as they kind of dropped off after that.
They started the slide. Obviously, they made a prelim against us in what was a half comp in 97. They made the finals in 98, which was Ricky Stewart, his last season. And who else? He left to the Bulldogs.
They made the finals this season as well.
So did Bradley Clyde. Yeah, so they were thereabouts, but they weren't as dominant as they had been.
No, they get knocked out by the Mousetrap.
Yes.
So
Mousetrap play.
We talked this season underwater. All right.
Yes, we'll go have a look at the lineups, and you'll get a fair bit of memory on that one. I'll quickly run you through your North Sydney Bears first up. So you go music, no music.
Oh yeah, let's go to music. All right, we'll fire up the music. So your lineups in the 1996 Bears versus Sharks.
The North Sydney Bears. 2. At number 3, Ben Iken, 12 years old in this one. And number 4, Chris Caruana. And number 5, David Hall. The halves, number 6, Michael Butner. And number 7, the captain, Jason Taylor. The front row, number 8, Gary Larson. 9, Mark Soden. 10, Steve Trindle. And the back row, it's a ripper. Number 11, David Fairley. Number 12, Greg Florimo. Number 13, Billy Moore. The bench, number 14, Nigel Roy. Number 15, Brenton Pomeroy. And number 16, Craig Wilson. And number 17, Danny Wilson. I think it might have been supposed to be Danny Williams there. And the coach, Peter Louie. Whilst for the Sharks, the back 5, it's, you know it well, Peachy, Rogers, Eddingshausen, the captain, Donaghy and Barnett. The halves, Healy and Green. The front row of Danny Lee, Dean Treestar, Les Davidson. The back row of Nathan Long, Craig Greenhill, Tawera Nicow. And the bench, international flavour on this one. We've got Andrew Pearce, South African Tian Strauss, number 16, a very young Adam Dykes, and Welshman Alan Bateman, the coach, John Lane.
Let's talk through this North Sydney Bears team before we get to the Sharks team.
That's right. It's supposed to be Danny Williams. Danny Williams.
It is Danny Williams, the guy that punched the guy in the head, isn't it? Is it that Danny Williams?
Who was that guy for the Tigers?
Mark O'Neill.
Mark O'Neill. Yeah.
Mark O'Neill.
It's in it for a long time.
It's interesting. North Sydney Bears, this team. The thoughts around whether Chris Caruana should have been in the starting team or Butner should have been in the centres. was a constant dispute for these guys. So they had Florimo move in and out of 5'8" with Jason Taylor quite a lot, and they make reference to that in the commentary in this one of whether Florimo should be in the back line or in the centres or not. Chris Caruana is one of the kind of original, I guess, utility players in terms of could play anywhere. And there's a moment in this match where he takes in the dummy half position. He also always had the fun thing of being mispronounced as marijuana at the time, which also came up. Other than that, look, you've got number 3, Ben Eichen. He was very young at this time. Brett Dallas was the absolute superstar of this team. David Hall played State of Origin. Matt Sears played State of Origin. Jason Taylor was the top point scorer. Larson Fairley and Billy Moore were well-established State of Origin players. This was a couple of years after, well, this was a year after Billy Moore's Queenslander call and when he was on debut with his finger pointing. And then on the bench, number 16, Craig Wilson is a very skillful player. So theirs is a red-hot Bears team. It's really unfortunate. They just weren't quite good enough to get over the line for them. And, you know, what could have been for them if they win a premiership in this time, maybe they don't get knocked out of the comp.
You're right. I think Butner had an absolute blinder against us, as you will see shortly. So that would have eased that chat there. Florimo, I suppose, being a wide running second rower and the ball handling he had, he went well as well. Fairley, as you said, was unstoppable. Caruana, I thought, yeah, you're right. He filled in at dummy half for a bit, was really good in the centres, almost manufactured a try out of nothing at one stage. And yeah, you're right. Ben Eichen, he gets injured fairly early on, so we don't see much of him. But they did have that depth and versatility, which maybe both worked for them against the lesser sides and not quite for them in the big matches where they needed an out-and-out dominant half, which Jason Taylor, yes, he was solid and could score plenty of points for you, reliable goal kicker, but he wasn't your top.
He was very
echelon.
good, Jason Taylor.
He wasn't your top echelon halfback, though, and neither was...
Well, they're great halfbacks in this period with Ricky Stewart and Al Langer. And then Taylor was
Joey
arguably behind Jeff Tuvey. And then, by 1996, Joey was starting to turn up. So Joey was around in 1995, wasn't he?
Yes.
1994 he debuted.
Yeah.
So
Taylor
Joey
was very serviceable. But
Joey gets picked in the New South Wales team for 95, doesn't he? So Joey's pretty much instantly ahead of Jason Taylor. So there's a fair. Jason Taylor's probably the 5th or 6th best halfback in the comp.
Yeah,
which is worrying for us and the Sharks at the moment because I feel we have the 5th or 6th best halfback.
You're right, and that's where can you do that with? Yeah, this is just a segue for a second. Atkinson or Trindle with him, and Kenny at fullback and Brayley at hooker. Yeah, it's a good question.
Brayley's definitely better than Mark Soden. So there's a full strength Bears team minus Josh Stewart, who could have been in for Steve Trindle. And then I just always was amused by looking back at a guy's name is Brenton Pomeroy. We talked enough about the Bears.
So obviously classic Shark side. Paul
really
Donaghy, Mr. Best match or best win percentage himself in the centres with ET there. But a couple of players I really want to focus on. Obviously, Tawera Nikau, which we did use in our intro. You'll see he stands up at a very important moment in this match. And there's some talk. He gets a bit of criticism in commentary for a few stages. And then basically each time he does cop a bit because he's found out a little bit in defence. There was a bit of lateral movement issues, which I don't remember, I suppose, because I hadn't seen this match and I was just going off memories of being a kid going to seeing the odd Friday night or Sunday afternoon game or going to matches and just seeing how great he was with the ball in hand, that he was still, I think, fitness-wise, getting a feel for it. And it was a fast by 90 standards, being a night match that the Bears were playing very up-tempo football. And Nico was found out a few times, yet he turned it around and had his own back, including at a very key moment. So he's a key player. Obviously, we know ET with his try-scoring ability made mention of his, I don't know how many shots he had at field goal. I never even knew that he had one before this moment. So we'll see how he goes there. And the Peaches,
they make mention of ET's defense, actually. Ray Warren
they do.
Does in the commentary. They talk about that a lot.
They talk about the 94 Kangaroo Tour where he came of age as a defender. I think he he played a lot on the wing for Australia and obviously backing up Mal. Mal Meninga, but he did play, I think, at least one match in the Ashes that year in the centres and really stood up. And they were talking about, was he aggressive but fair defender? And he makes quite a few crucial tackles there where the Bears just keep carving us up on the fringes. Another point to note as well, Paul Green saves their bacon a few times too with some good plays. But yeah, that side.
He's good in this game,
period,
Paul Green. This is one of his very good games.
Yeah, and Mitch Healy obviously has a key role as well. So looking
Dykes
at it,
gets a lot of minutes. So we've talked about Dykes and
Yeah.
Healy and Green before,
well,
and so this
I'll
is an
just have
example because Dykes comes on for Dean Treaster for a while.
you're right. And looking
there's
at
some
Adam
classic
Dykes.
sideways running by Adam Dykes.
Yeah, but he puts a few effective kicks in. He has a couple of darts at a dummy half. You're right. That there's no marker there. Let's go. But looking at
I don't remember much about Alan Bateman, to be honest.
Alan Bateman, he played for us for a couple of years. He was a Welsh international. He did then go on and play professional rugby union. He was a solid centre. He did play quite prolifically over in the UK. I think he scored quite a few tries for us. It might have been 96 where he scored about eight or 10 tries. I'll get his stats up shortly. But looking at Adam Dyke, so this was actually it's only his 9th match in first grade. Yeah, he hadn't been in for long because so he made his debut in start of 1995, played a few matches and then probably got injured and disappeared for a fair while. And then 1996, he played the vast majority of it predominantly off the bench. And then, so it was probably the earliest match I've seen of Dykesy. And you're right, he does play basically hooker exclusively, which he's not known for, but you can start to see that
lucidness and that running.
Yeah, that what he could contribute. He was small, but I suppose it was from an era too where a lot of the players were quite small. Like Matt Sears wasn't a particularly big guy.
Rogers wasn't big. Caruana wasn't big. David Hall wasn't big. Green wasn't big.
Yeah.
Treaster Soden weren't big.
Looking at Alan Bateman, he scored for us. So he played Cronulla 95 and 96. He scored, he played 33 matches. He scored 6 tries over the 2 years. He scored 5 tries for us in 96, 1 in 95. So he then moved on to play he went to rugby union after this one. But he played for Warrington prior to that. He played for Wales and Great Britain. He was a handy utility, I think, and they kind of used him at second row when he came off the bench, which, I wouldn't say it was standout, but I do remember him as a player.
Tian Strauss wasn't standout either. He was big.
Tian Strauss was big, but I mean, I think the story was that he came out here, he was trying to get his Australian residency to then play for the Wallabies. It was back during that period where rugby union was becoming professional or officially professional as of 1995. Tian Strauss, for the, I suppose, the novelty factor, having a South African in the team is cool, but I don't think he set the world on fire. Looking at his stats now, he played a total of 14 appearances for 1 try. So 5 in 95. Yeah, 9 in 97. Oh, sorry, 5 in 96, 9 in 97. So, as for
I don't
players,
remember him being in the grand final team of the Super League team.
No, I don't think he was. I can have a look at his exact match list for 97, but I don't think he was in the grand final squad. The last match he played in 1997 was round 10, which makes me think that maybe he departed midway through the season, or at least dropped out into reserve grade and then departed from there. But his last match was in round 10, so didn't set the world on fire.
Team, this one.
It
solid.
Is.
Richie Barnett, Rogers, one of the more popular wing combinations as we've talked through before.
Yeah, looking at the outs from the previous week, so Sean Ryan and Jeff Bell were both out injured. So Sean Ryan and Jeff Bell were both on the bench. So I'm not sure. The previous week we must have had a slightly different lineup. We'll go into details there. But looking at any standout missing players, obviously Ben Samet had a huge 95 season and then was
until he dropped the ball against the Warriors and was never seen again.
Yeah, was he actually dropped, or was an injury cloud? Because he was
he had a shocker against the Warriors where
at home.
Where he dropped the ball off the drop out and then just lost from there.
Yeah, so he was obviously touted.
Lovely mother references a lot. There's it's a Ben Samet. It's like literally where the Sharks just have a brain explosion moment and just never look like doing anything. And no, it's a great look at
Yeah.
Sharks team. Greenhill, Nick Long, all those legend guys. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's roll in. So looking at it, we had a pretty electric start. If you go on to the next slide with the actual key moments, we had a decent first set, put them downfield. North scored the ball. Ben Eichen made a line break, which was pretty ominous for us early. And there was a forward pass ruled against. I think it was the pass that put him through the line, which allowed us to set up a scrum 40 metres out, which straight away we went blindside. Nick out of green to Rogers. Rogers made a 40-metre break, 30-metre break, cut down 10 out. The set swung left, so the old swing it line was very much in vogue for both these sides. The second you get tackled wide out on one side, just swing it the other way, which they did. Lots of wraparound. So I think the very first opportunity they did, it was wraparound Green onto Healy, wraparound again, then to Green, swung it left. A couple of settling players. And then Rogers swings right. Nickau with a flick pass to Rogers, which back to Rogers, sorry, which Ray Warren thought was forward. And then he's tackled about half a metre out. And then on the last tackle, Treester just picks it up and buries over to score out wide.
Through Rogers' legs.
Through Rogers' legs. So not legal.
I don't know if you
these
get
days.
away with that now.
Well, no, you can't. So you can't go through their legs. There's a few other things in this game. There's a 40-20 by, I think it was Taylor, actually. A clearing kick by Taylor that would have been a 40-20 these days, but there was no 40-20 then. So, which would have been a really key moment. But anyway, 4-0. Matt Rogers set up the goal kicking on top of the sand. No tees at the time, and nails it from the right touchline with his left boot to go 6-0 up after 4. And there's a bit of talk in the commentary team about the Sharks being up for it and on fire tonight, but that quickly turned around. North's basically dominated from here on in, and we just held on by the skin of our teeth for a fair bit of it. So basically straight away, Bears are carving up the field, controlling possession and field position. They get a couple of repeat sets, and then David Fairley onto a Michael Butner short ball, slides straight between, I think it was Green and Nickau to score straight away. Within seconds, it's at 6-all. And then shortly after that, they marched downfield, forced a repeat set, and then there was a high shot by Danny Lee on Billy Moore, which Taylor duly takes to go 8-6 up. And all of a sudden, we're looking like we have a game on our hands after a pretty solid start by us. So do you remember, or any comments about that opening 20-minute period?
Oh, Fairley was just on fire.
Yeah. It was every carry.
I don't remember. Yeah, and he was just this wide running, back rowing player, really. So, and I don't remember him being anywhere near as good as Billy Moore or Gary Larson, but in this match, he was certainly showing them up. So, he was an absolute handful. And then I also, interestingly, early, Mark Soden gets injured. I don't know if you were going to cover this or not, but he cops a concussion and then goes off with Chris Caruana. At around this time, I don't know whether it was before or after this try or not.
You are right. There are a few. I think, actually, speaking of head knocks, Dykes later on has a head knock as well, and you see him coming off holding.
Well, Caruana goes to dummy half, and Soden goes off, and you can tell, despite the fact that Norths are in the ascendancy, that does knock them around a little bit.
Yeah,
and they're not as effective in attack.
They're not as fast. I did notice, like, despite being, I wouldn't call it a wet night, but it was a dewy night. Obviously,
and
winter.
the grass drainage is not as good back then, so it gets quite muddy. Quality. The players got quite dirty.
Yeah, where the cricket pitch is, the middle of the ground, the middle centre square was just a mud pit from the start. It didn't affect the match, though. I wouldn't have said, like, it was fairly up tempo given the conditions. But you're right, North did slow down a bit there. But shortly on, if you go forward on the slide, the all-important third try in just the 22nd minute, it comes off Fairley. Basically, it was a quick play the ball, Taylor to Fairley, and then he's just gone straight through another hole. Just that was in the middle of the field. A lot of it, the breaks, as you're saying, we get wide running. This one, there was a bit of a decoy runner, which it probably would go up for a bit of an obstruction look these days, because I'm not sure if he caught it outside the lead runner if you're going to go in those periods. But I think it was a poor read by Nickau that created the gap and fairly went through. There was some late defense from Green and Peachy that kind of were looking to hold him short, but just with his strength and big right arm, he just extended what was Fatty called him, like a tiger. That doesn't even make, and I think Sterlo calls him, like, that doesn't even make sense. It's more like he's an octopus. But anyway, he puts it over the line.
Was a footy show reference to Like a Tiger from that
Like a
time.
tiger? Yeah.
Yeah, it was the Mahatma coat and all that stuff. Like
gotcha.
Like a tiger.
Like a
tiger.
Like a
Used
tiger.
to be the, I don't know if you remember that or not. Maybe you were too
I
young.
do. Now you mention it, I do vaguely remember it. But anyway, the Norths are up 14-6, and they were in control. And I think they throw up a stat around this time too, where the Sharks have had not much ball. I think it's possessions about 60-40 split in favour of Norths, and all the field position. So Sharks go another 5 minutes or so with minimal ball. Dykes comes on for Treaster, and Blocker also notes on the sideline. So Steve Roach on the sideline at this point in time notes Mitch Healy's left leg is heavily strapped and is not expecting him to last the match, which, remember that line and see how the last few minutes go. But Bears on the 26-minute, Bears run the ball in the fifth, 20 metres out. David Hall puts it down. So they had an opportunity there, I think, where they could have at least got a repeat set, or even scored the fourth try. And
they blow it a few times, don't they?
Yeah, at 20-6.
And there's some very 2016-esque scramble defense from the Sharks, actually, a couple of times in this match.
Good scramble defense, but it did seem like if I was watching that live and not knowing the result, I would have been like, oh, we're not far off this game blowing wide open and us getting blown off the park. But we hang in there. The commentators around this time keep talking about Nick Howe struggling to keep pace and being found out in defence. And I suppose you could argue that he was found out for the first two tries, but keep an eye on that as well, because he has a starring role later on. And they also talk about Andrew Eddingshausen only having one touch in the first 30 minutes. And Sterlo makes mention of that and says, surely that's got to be some kind of mistake. And Rabs corrects him and goes, no, it's not. He's had a quiet one so far. So Ben Eichen has copped a massive tackle by, I think it was earlier on. I'll try and see who did that. But Ben Eichen copped a rib injury, and he was not looking well at all. He looked about 12 there. I'm not sure how old he was, but he was in all sorts of
19.
19. There
he
you
was
go.
18 when he got picked in State of Origin the year before.
Yeah, when Fatty didn't recognise him in the lift, but and thought he was a fan. Obviously, you've heard that story, I'd imagine.
Yeah, everyone knows that story.
Yeah, everyone knows that story. But anyway, you never know. Someone might not. So it was a Craig Greenhill tackle that bruised his ribs. There you go. And also Rabs around that time makes mention of a tribute night happening on the 8th of August. If you want to buy your tickets at Sharks League Club, it was a tribute testimonial dinner for Steve Rogers. So I hope that was a good night for all involved. But at this point in time, the teams start trading set for set. The Sharks start to get back into it with some good kicks by Paul Green and Mitch Healy downfield. You note that most of the time they were trying to kick on the fourth tackle and kick for touch, and they were finding it and getting the scrums. So that was slowing the game down a bit to allow them to reset a couple of times. We make good ground, 50, 60 metres, and then put it out about 10 metres out from their line. And then, unfortunately, when we had our first good attacking set, basically since the first 3 minutes, Paul Green tries a Harbour Bridge pass that goes behind everyone and then into touch. So straight from that, Billy Moore makes a line break, steps at the line, beats Andrew Pearce, puts Caruana away, and then is brought down by a great covering tackle by Rogers 10 metres out. And then, unfortunately, for the Bears, they put a wayward pass out behind Brett Dallas, which if he caught that, it would have been 18-6, potentially 20-6, and maybe game over. So hanging in there, lots of offloads.
Hanging in there. They say at the time, Dallas is quick, but he's not that quick.
Yeah, couldn't get it, which I do make a mention to.
Fatty Horton loves Brett Dallas at this time.
Well, he can't. It was hot off his starring play in the 1995 Origin series, where he scored the length of field try. He was electric. I do make mention to the 1996 ARL or ARL 96 computer game at some stage later on, and he is by far the best player in that game because he's just
fast
stats for speed. And he's got that game.
And the elements of the different skill levels in that game don't really matter as much as just being fast.
Speed is all that's required. So lots of offloads by that stage. Alan Bateman replaces Tian Strauss, which they make mention of the international flair in the Sharks side. A green bomb is batted back by Peachy. Ball kept alive by Rogers, Grubber, Buettner loses it, and it's collected by a Bears player in an offside position. So a bit of a lucky break by the Sharks there. Not much going on. 30 metres out midfield, we get a penalty. And, of course, we take the 2 to go back within 6. So 5 before half-time, take the 2, 14-8. Not much else happens before the...
Is the right decision there when you're down by 8 to take the 2 and bring it back to 6 points?
Agreed. We will have a lot of chat on future episodes about taking 2 and 4 and against the like. This has nothing to do with 4 and against. This has nothing to do with saving face or anything like that. That is just keeping touch. It's a gift, 2 points. It's effectively in front. Rogers nails it, no worries at all. So, yeah, you take that.
I guess also the thinking is in the 36th minute, if you grub her into the in goals, you may not get another set anyway. So you're better off just to take the 2. It's definitely the right call. And then bringing it back within 6 points proves to be the correct decision, doesn't it?
Well, surely afterwards, so Dykes, as I said, he's on. He puts a left foot clear and click downfield. We force an error and then get a penalty and get back downfield. So 39th minute, we're on the attack. Grubber into the in goal. ET's chasing. He's not far off actually getting there, and it's battered dead. And halftime, the penalty count's 4-all. The score is 14-8. But if we manage to jag a try there, which not outside the realms of possibility, all of a sudden you go into the sheds 14-all, and
which would have been ridiculous.
Which would have been ridiculous given the everything associated. Unfortunately, the replay doesn't show the halftime stats. It would have been interesting to see because we were dominated in every facet, I would have imagined. The only thing that I thought we had going for was, as you said, the scrambling defense. And when we had the ball, which was rare, we did seem to be keeping the ball alive with a lot of offloads, but so too were North. So a lot more offloads in this era of the match, I reckon, or era of the game. 90s, given that a lot of the tackles were only 1- and 2-man tackles, rather than what we see now. A lot of the contact wasn't as heavy, apart from the odd Danny Lee high shot. So, yeah, we were lucky to be down by 6. Any comments by you before we rip into the second half?
No, you're categorically correct that we were lucky to be in it.
Yeah.
But it's just like classic Bears, this one, is they just pretty good team, but just can't put teams away. And that's a lack of their just elite level player.
Yeah, which is, you're right. I suppose Buettner, obviously, Buettner and Taylor, I think both had starring roles.
They were good, but they're just not brilliant.
Yeah, but not that top echelon. So 1 minute in the second half, Blocker Roach on the sideline is talking about how Gary Larson is now injured. Icon is confirmed out for the rest of the match. The Bears are down to a 2-person bench. Teresa comes back on. Healy puts a high kick out in the full, which looks like, based on replays from what I saw, it looked
like it landed inside, but then you watch the second replay and it was out.
Yeah, was it? Okay, because
it was.
Because live I was like, that bounced at least a meter or two in the field of play.
That too. I actually paused it and looked. I was like, oh no, it was out.
Yeah. Just a minute later, Greg Florimo returns the favour and puts it out in the full. Paul Green puts a crossfield kick that goes dead in the 48th.
That was a bad kick, that one.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
It was a bad
by Green
kick.
Standards. He was trying to recover that set, though. I think we'd gone an initial kick. It was kept alive, and it was a second kick of that play. 51st minute, Nick Howe saves at Bacon with a try-saving tackle on that flying David Hall. Next play, 5th tackle, 10 metres out. Norths did set well here, gave it to Taylor, 10 metres out, and he pops a calm field goal, which the Sharks' defence didn't seem ready for. I think they were looking to defend an attacking kick, and then all of a sudden Norths are up by 7. So 51st minute field goal, I don't think you'd see that happen too often these days.
No, in the final series, you see a 23rd minute field goal.
Yeah.
So it's a far more common move. I actually don't mind it.
I don't mind it too. You're right. Scoreboard pressure. Yeah.
Well, especially in the lower scoring game. So this time, there's not that many more points in this game. So,
well, the conditions were only going to get more slippery as it got more dewy. There was obviously the injury factors as well with players starting to get fatigued. I'm not sure was it unlimited interchange rule then, or was it that was definitely 90 not? Yeah. So how many interchanges did he get? I'd have to look that up. I can't remember because obviously there was a couple of quick changes there though, because there was like last.
I remember the season before in the finals, the Sharks would bring on Nathan Long and Adam Ritson in the 20-minute mark, and then take them off with 20 minutes to go, and that used to be quite a game-changing moment. So
yeah, well.
They don't seem to be struggling for interchanges, but they're not like running them on and off like they were at the start of the NRL when they could bring them on for a minute and then have the attacking team and the defensive team.
Unlimited, yeah, you'd have Hutch Mayava in 03 and the like. But so there's the early field goal by Taylor to go 15-8 up. So this is where you were talking about pre-game. Ray Warren and Sterlo were talking about ET's development as a defensive centre, not just a game breaker. And he does, I think it was just after he did a good covering tackle, and then he absolutely smashed. I think he got up in the line and got in Buettner's face. So ET was starting to, despite not having a great game with the ball in hand, was making an impact in defence. I did notice a lot too. He seemed to be playing a lot of left centre. I know back then they had inside and outside centre versus right and left, but I distinctly remember him being, especially with Rogers in the 90s, a predominantly right centre, but a lot of this match
and
was
with Rogers,
so I'm not sure. Yeah, but a lot of this game he was actually Donaghy with Rogers and ET on the left with Barnett. So I'm not sure if that was a strategic play by John Lang or just how the game ended up, but he was. But it wasn't exclusive, but ET was swapping sides of the field. The Bears were on the attack again. Paul Green had a try-saving knockdown, which again saved us from going down by 13 points.
Yeah, they were on the attack for like 15 minutes here, just relentlessly, weren't they?
Yeah, and we were just hanging on again. And they did comment about how, similar to the first half, Sharks had early running for about 5 minutes and then it just seemed to be all Bears. Same thing again in the second half. And then Paul Green saves the day again with a covering tackle on a Brett Dallas line break. Fifth tackle grubber is just covered by ET. He was very casual on this one. David Hall put the grubber in and almost followed through himself, and ET was just almost walking back. It almost seemed like he seemed fatigued, but he just casually caught it and then copped the tackle in goal. Line dropout. And then just after this, Gary Larson offload to a charging David Fairley, who essentially scores out wide, would have been a hat trick, and it's ruled back for a forward pass. So
I don't think it was forward, actually. I thought that was a bit tough on him.
I thought that was very tough. I thought that was, so he's just better put it down when they'd called it back.
Rugby league gods just didn't like the Bears.
Yeah, Alan Bateman got smashed by Danny Williams. Healy had a good touch finder to kind of turn the momentum a bit. They talk about the Sharks reserve grade result winning 30-0. Remember when they used to talk about the reserve.
What about that? There was the harsh penalty against Nathan Long for the.
That is on here.
That was heaps harsh.
Yes, very harsh. Where he had the ball. They hadn't called held, or apparently they did, and he passed it. This day and age, thankfully they got rid of that penalty a few years ago, but they called it.
Yeah, this day and age, they'd say, hey, just go back and just, there's a bit of common sense rule.
Yeah, you're right. And that was so harsh. And they went back downfield. So just before that, Brett Dallas had a try, disallowed dual double movement, which was a correct call. We had a harsh penalty against Nathan Long, which puts North on the attack again. Caruana, he was through again, try saver by to wear a nick out again. Larson then makes a break after a miraculous offload by Matt Sears. Try saved by Nathan Long. And then there was a lost ball. So we'll call some sweet justice there. Then we had a flick offload intercepted by Norris on the halfway line. They go on the attack again. Knock on by Billy Moore on the third. So that was get out of jail. The missed tackles at that point in time were 30-11 in Cronulla's non-favour, I suppose. We weren't. I suppose
30 missed tackles is a lot.
It's a lot, but given the amount of ball North's had, maybe it wasn't too bad. But yeah, we did a lot of defending. Then 69th minute on halfway, we swing left.
This is great.
Peachy into the line, offload to ET, bad onto Barnett, makes a break down the left. Great left foot step on Matt Sears. Turned it back inside to Nick Howe, who finishes at the remaining 20 metres or so to score under the post.
Great speed from Nick Howe.
Great speed, great covering. It was a quick shift to the left and great play by Barnett. Just took off, and you're right, Nick out just came flying through.
There were a couple of moves. So ET had quick hands to get it across to Barnett. And then, Barnett just had a kind of little shimmy and a move and in and out, but then released Nick Howe. Because Nick Howe was a few passes earlier and had backed up really well. It's a terrific try, this one.
You're right, and they did say it was about 4 to 5 North's defenders on basically Barnett and Nikau on the left, and Barnett had a lot of work to do. Showed his class as a winger to get the break, beat the fullback, and then in traffic, kind of step inside David Hall a little bit as well, and just get a little pass away to Nikau to score. Rogers landed the kick from in front. There was talk about, was there a knock on or a forward pass in there by the commentary team, talking about the ET baton potentially being forward. I actually think
it
this
was
one was
backwards.
okay.
Turn it up.
I think it was okay. Exactly.
It's 15-14. Now, I'll quickly put it up on the screen, the next thing, but we should
the next thing. We don't want to give it away.
Across.
Well, right. All right.
So it's 15-14. I should have noticed this in the build-up. 15 to Norths, 14 to the Sharks with 8 minutes to go.
Kickoff, or just as the kickoff was happening at one point down, I noticed there was a Vuvuzela in the crowd. I thought you would like that one, but there was, I think it was a Sharks favouring Vuvuzela. Of course, you hear it again after we hit the something shortly too. So another North's attacking raid after we turn the ball over, an intercept by Treester stops that one. Then another Healy bomb in the 73rd minute taken by Sears 5 metres out. Green kicks down the sideline in the 75th. So noticing this, we're not getting as far into the attacking half as we'd like to either pop a field goal, put an attacking kick in. The Bears are doing well to contain us, and the Bears are just kind of seem to be doing enough to hold on. Soden puts an early kick on the third tackle into touch 20 metres out, which looked like a 40-20 from my vantage point. Maybe it wasn't, but there was that rule wasn't in play at the time. That would come around the following year in Super League. There was some messy scrum.
The 40-20 was a ARL rule.
It was a Super League rule.
It was a Super League rule, was it?
I believe. I'd have to double check, but I'm certain it was a Super League rule. I think they used it in the UK first, and then they brought it out here. So anyway, on the 76 minutes, so after that scrum, we worked downfield. Green was first receiver. He takes a step because it's rushing defense, snaps from 35 metres out. Low trajectory. I reckon if he got it straight, he would have got it, but unfortunately goes just to the right. So it's still down by 1. 77th minute, there's a hurried kick by Taylor under plenty of pressure, straight to Nikau with a great kind of slips take by Nikau there. And then the Sharks start their set on their own 40-metre line. So definitely in a good position to work downfield and try and get a result. Dykes comes off at this point, clutching his head. And then the 78th minute, this is the moment Green's caught on tackle 5. ET's first receiver on the right. I'm not sure where Mitch Healy is. He may be a couple of players to the left. It's a long way out. It's not really field goal range. We're talking 2-point field goal here in the modern day. And ET has a snap. I don't recall him ever taking a line drop out. I don't recall him ever doing a drop kick, but he gets hold of it.
He does drop kick in the in like a sevens tournament, Val Holmes style.
Okay.
He does a few of them. I remember them.
So he's got a bit of form. I didn't know. Obviously, he had a few conversion attempts in 1999. I remember those. One was from in front and he got it. And there was another one from a bit right of the post and he shanked it. But anyway, as I said, it's got the height, it's got the length, and it falls, in Ray Warren's words, 6 feet to the right of the posts. Sears collects it, not on the full, so it's not a 20-meter restart. He gets tackled just outside he's in goal. And then we're thinking, geez, like, what's there? It's a minute and a half to go. We might get the ball back from maybe 3 tackles, but if the Bears play this set properly, if they play intelligently, they'll put it out probably about 30 out from our line, and you need a Hail Mary play. Anyway, your friend Soden from dummy half, 45 metres out from his own line, puts it out on the full by a long way. Like, yes, there was pressure, but gosh, I mean, I feel for the Bears. I
think he's feeling the impact of the head knock, actually, Soden, at this point.
You're right.
Like, it was a bad moment. So why he kicked it instead of throwing to Jason Taylor? There's no way Jason Taylor kicks it out on the full, I can tell you.
Yeah. So
it goes out on the full, Sharks on the attack.
55 seconds on the clock, full set, starting 45 metres out from North's line. Fatty immediately calls out North for being offside. He's like, they are offside, and that should be a penalty, and that'd be a kick for a penalty goal to win the match. As an interchange of passing on the third tackle, Treester is tackled right of the post, about 25 metres out. Green set at first receiver. He's rushed by the defence, steps and ran, tackled about 10 metres out, which actually, in hindsight, was a great run because it just got them into that much better position. And then Healy stands very deep. Treester, great delivery. you see the seconds dialed down. The hooter doesn't go off though. But anyway, it's after the siren now at the 80th minute and 2 seconds. Healy takes the kick, good connection with his right boot, and it clears the top of the goalposts. And the Sharks get out of jail with a 15-all draw. And yes, it's a cracker. Go have a look at it if you haven't already. Yeah.
I guess we can't really sing the song, can we?
No. And then, well, you see the Sharks fans in the crowd are going up. All the Norths fans are obviously devastated.
It's one of those ones where you draw and you're happy if you're a Sharks fan, but if you're a...
How many draws have you been to? On a side point, this is a random question. How many draws have you been to?
I mean, at least one. I can't remember it, but I remember thinking, no, it was a draw. Back to your point around the fatty calling out that was a penalty. A couple of weeks earlier for the launch of Monday Night Football, there's an infamous moment where Andrew G incorrectly taps the ball and gives away a penalty when the Broncos are playing the Roosters, and then the Roosters take the penalty goal to win.
How did he incorrectly tap the ball? Pardon my...
he taps it with his... He just goes like that rather than having it on the ground. And so the penalty at the death costs...
Sione Katoa tapped it on the ground for a 20-minute restart the other night. And Ronan was asking, why is he doing that? And I said, I remember back in the 90s that you used to have to tap that way, and then they removed that rule. So obviously that rule's like...
Yeah, so he's holding it in his hands and he just went like that and tapped it.
Right.
Yep.
Because he used
so
to
that was like massive at the time.
It would have been controversial.
Oh, it was absolutely massive. Bloody Roosters. That's when it started.
Yeah.
That's when it started.
Anyway, so I've been to 2 draws, I think so. 2001 at the Sydney Football Stadium against the Dragons, where Nathan Blacklock scored a last-minute try for the Dragons from a grubber, and that felt like we'd lost, even though it was a draw. And then the following week, bizarrely, I think it was the week before, at home against the West Tigers, the Tigers scored 4 tries, we scored 3, and that was so the Dragons one was 26-all, the Tigers
won 20-all,
16-all. And I think it's John Simon actually playing for the Tigers, lining up the kick and missed it. And it was a pretty gettable kick. So that one felt, that was a flat feeling as well. It felt like we not quite won that one, but I could understand this one nabbing a field goal like that in literally after the siren. That would have felt like a win of a draw. It's like
that would have felt. Well, we were gone. We were gone. It's funny because watching this thing, I was kind of thinking, we always it's always a Sharks win on the classic Cronulla Chronicles. So with 15 seconds to go, I was sitting there going, how the hell do we win this game? And then we kick the field goal. Oh, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the Sharks are still undefeated in classic Cronulla Chronicles.
So it's a first for, I think the Chronicles is our first game. Actually, no, our first one was from the 90s, from 99. So second game from the 90s, but first game from the pre-NRL era, first non-win, first draw, first game against a defunct club.
Non-rugby, non-current team.
Yeah. So we got a few there. Anyway, it was a cracking game. We'll go through the talking points, I suppose.
Let's go through the talking points.
A fair bit of stick from the commentary early on, but he more than made up for it. One of my favourite players in this era. This was his second of 3 seasons for us, departing at the end of the 97 season to go join the new Melbourne Storm franchise. This was his second try for the Sharks. After having scored early in his career in 95, didn't score for a fair while after that and scored here. So, it would have been handy having him in future years.
He's just a look to wear a Nick Howe for the Sharks, wasn't he?
The only thing...
just John Lang had this way of just plucking players from nowhere, like Nick Howe and Green. And
yeah.
Who are these guys?
Yeah, well, Nick Howe, because he came from the UK where there wasn't much coverage at the time. So that was like a real kind of like, who is this guy? Where's he come from kind of moment. But he obviously played the same position as Nick Graham as well. So if Nick Howe didn't move on, what becomes of Nick Graham? Nick Graham.
That's true.
Yeah. So,
Sharks legend Nick Graham.
Yeah. And we talk how important Nick Graham was during the 2001 era, especially, but even before that. So Yeah, looking at his overall stats for the club, he played 61 matches, 4 tries, had a handy win percentage of 40 wins, 19 losses, 2 draws, 65.
That's pretty good.
7%. So, yeah, star player.
Even I love a win percentage.
I know you do. Obviously, he was a starring player in the 1999 Melbourne Storm premiership winning side before he then went to the UK. Back there, went and played for Warrington in 2000 and 2001. Obviously, he's had a lot of, I suppose, tragedies.
He had that motorcycle accident, which was so unfortunate for him, and then
the
made that difficult decision. Yeah, and that difficult decision to just amputate his leg and just get on with life. He's just an absolute legend, that guy.
Yeah, loss of his wife as well, and a few other things. But absolute legend of the game, legend of the club. So thank you, Tawira. That was definitely one of your highlights. And it's great to see because I've got plenty of memories of him, but you're right, the back catalogue of live matches or matches you can watch on Kayo and YouTube isn't that big from that era. So we'll have to try and get more available.
Get onto the NRL, Williams.
We will. We'll have to or get onto the club, something. I'm sure they're hidden somewhere.
All right, next.
Yeah. Mitch Healy, one of my favourites, one of yours too. Gosh, his bombs were huge, but just the composure from him in that last minute or last second after the siren to nail that field goal was a real testament to his quality. Same too with the other Chronicles match that we covered at the start of the season, the away game against the Warriors in 1999, where he nailed a sideline conversion from the right side in the wind and rain against the Warriors. He was known, or not known, to be obviously top echelon half. He wasn't in the same ballpark as
it was Chad Townsend.
Yeah, but I think he was Chad Townsend with a better kicking game.
His bombs were incredibly good.
His bombs, as
remember
soon as
him finding Richie Barnett. If 40-20s were in when he was playing,
he was a huge exponent, massive exponent of that. So had a good grubber as well. There was a couple of times, like there was one moment he made a poor play on the last, kind of trying to bat the ball, but I think he copped a poor pass from dummy half, tried to bat the ball wide, and it went over the sideline inside our half on tackle 5. But he stood up here when he needed to, and him and Green, was great to see the connection that they had. Obviously, we all know how well they went in the final series against the Tigers. Sorry, not the Tigers, the Magpies and the Broncos before the horrific Manly match. And
wasn't that horrific? Manly were good.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right, but still, it doesn't make it any less hard to swallow. And then obviously too, having Dykes on the field as well, having Green, Dykes, and Healy on the field is probably a rare moment in that period. So. The Bears, your favourite team.
They're not my favourite team. They're just my second favourite team.
Soft spot. I'll throw to you.
I definitely have a soft spot for the Bears. So they were just really unlucky in this period of time, having made multiple prelim finals. If you go and watch the fallout from this season, you will see the Bears, and the highlights are actually on YouTube. So in the semi-finals, the Bears play the Dragons in the prelim. And they're just really unlucky in that match. And there's a moment where, they're defending pretty well, and then there's an offload, and somehow Mundine just gets it and scoots through to just put them up. And the other thing that happened to them is actually Noel Goldthorpe kicks a field goal to get ahead by a point. And that extra point that the Bears were behind, when it goes from 1 point to 7 points to 13 points, is just a little bit too much for the Bears to overcome. They're also a little bit unlucky with Brett Dallas being injured in that finals match, and then bringing him on with 20 minutes to go. They just look a bit busted at the end. And against a really fortunate Dragons team that the week before had blitzed Sydney City, and the week before it had the mousetrap over Canberra Raiders in the 16-14 win. So what could have been for the Bears? If the Bears win a premiership in this time, I don't think they're booted out of the comp at all. And it's one of the great shames of rugby league that they don't play matches at that beautiful North Sydney Oval anymore. And there's a bunch of rugby league fans in an area of Sydney that isn't quite serviced by rugby league.
You're right. I mean, they were on their way up to the Central Coast anyway as the 90s were closing. So, which would have
I
been.
don't think they were on their way to the Central
options.
Coast by this year, though.
No, not yet.
They hadn't quite decided that.
But they had by 1999, which is when the rationalisation was starting to come into full swing.
Yeah, that was a dumb plan from them.
What?
That
Not
was
the Central Coast?
Yeah,
Central
they
Coast?
just blew it. Like the
No,
Sharks.
I think
the
they should've
Sharks
done that a
handled
few
the
years.
Super League. The Sharks handled the Super League era just a little bit better, and the fallout from that. Their move to the
Super League.
Hey?
Their move to the Central Coast, if they did that by rationalisation 98, 99, that would have secured their freedom. And then it would have
I'm
been
going to use
interesting
the
to
leaf
see.
out of your book. If they'd have won a premiership, that would have secured their freedom.
True, twofold. And that's where I suppose actually, Newtown didn't win a premiership, but they made a grand final the year they disappeared back in the early 80s. So
that's because they went bust.
They went bust, but Norths eventually went bust too in the Northern Eagles venture in 2002. So,
they just lost their identity by going Central Coast, and they just also their team just fell off the rails at the wrong time.
They did, like that era stopped at the 98. Like 99. I'll go through the record against them if we want to have a look at that. But like we didn't lose to North Sydney again in their existence. Obviously, we didn't play them in 1997. 98, we only played them once. We won in what was not a particularly good year for us. And then we won that match.
I can't remember if it was 98 or 99, the year where we were missing a bunch of players and Paul Mellor comes in and just carves them up at Shark Park. I think it was 98.
It was probably, that would have been 98 because 99 we won 21-20 in an Origin affected match.
Maybe that was the Paul Mellor game.
Mitch Healy field goal. And Mellor does play well there, you're right. And then, so we beat them 16-12 at Shark Park in 98. And then end of 99, the second last match ever at Bear Park in the North Sydney Bears, I suppose, line up or set up as a club on their own. We put 50 points on for the first time in our history with a 56-18 win on a Saturday afternoon. So it was a sad ending to the Bears. One of my really good mates, a guy I used to work with up in Newcastle, he was he still is a Bears fan, still goes to reserve grade matches. And obviously
when I'm CEO of the NRL, I will bring the Bears back in some format. Williams, and they will play.
Format, I think as they another will play. Team,
they will play 3 matches or 2 matches at North Sydney Oval, and 10 matches at wherever they should play. And whoever wants to team up with them. Yeah, just looking at, the jersey behind me, the North Leagues. That North Leagues club's really good. So there was a Leagues club that was servicing a rugby league team. Throwing that away was foolish at the time. But, that's the fallout from the Super League war. So.
Yeah. So looking, I suppose, at the North Sydney Oval record, I'll bring that up. We had a good record there. We actually, overall, we'd won 12, they'd won 10. And then we obviously drew this one. We hadn't lost.
And we win our next game at North Sydney Oval.
We win our next game there, our next and final game there, and that was
the next game at North Sydney Oval. Do you know which one that is?
That was the 1999 56-18.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, you're talking about a finals match. The one against the
we play the Magpies.
Right. We do play the
North Sydney Oval on the Friday night. I think it's 20-12, isn't it?
2012, you are right. So, yes, I forgot about the location of that one. I'm looking at the Sharks North's record at the ground rather than the overall record at the ground for the Sharks, but you are correct. We ourselves had a good record there. Our last loss prior to this at that location was in 1990. Actually, that's not even 1987. So, yeah, we had a good run at the club, at that ground against a foundation club. But I suppose Norths, I don't know what their records were back in, I suppose, the
Norths lost matches for years. I have a feeling we may have never even played North Sydney in a finals match.
Yeah, probably right on that one. Like we didn't during the 90s.
We didn't during the 90s.
We didn't, apart from 88, 89, we didn't make finals. And yeah,
and they were hopeless for years.
73, 78, we're playing Dragons, Western Suburbs, Manly. So
yeah, they weren't in it.
Yeah, so you're right. We never had the pleasure of playing against the Bears in a finals match.
I think I'm not sure. We can check that.
Yeah, but looking at that, yeah. So we did lose them. So my stats were wrong there. 1990, we lost there in 1987 and 86. But we had a very good record, including winning 6 games straight between 1974 and 1979 at the venue. So a great location to go as a Sharks fan. I never got the chance to go see. Actually, I don't think I've been in North Sydney Oval. So there's still time. We'll have to fix that. But rolling on to the next slide, we had that era. I could have put a Super League logo, which I probably should have. That was the overarching, as I said, the shadows of the Super League war. The Sharks had to forfeit their first round match, as did all the other Super League teams. There was a very real possibility of
one Super League team did not forfeit their first match. Do you know which one that was?
That's a good question. Wasn't the Warriors, was it? No.
It was the Warriors. They had a loophole where they were able to select players from the secondary competition and were able to field a team. So they beat the Broncos, who didn't turn up.
Yeah, there you go.
Good on you, Warriors, for being tricky.
So the Warriors, they didn't play, but they technically won the forfeit, so to speak.
They didn't play because they were able to field a team because their players were eligible.
Yeah, right.
For some reason.
Name it 17. But anyway, so Super League, the shadow cast long, that all blew up in March of 1995, right on season kickoff, with the four new teams being the Perth Reds, the South Queensland Crushers, the North Queensland Cowboys, and the Auckland Warriors. It was a bit of a heyday of rugby league. And
wasn't
then
it?
It all kind of went to poo. As a kid at the time, I don't remember too much. Obviously, it was all over the media at the time. I was really just focused on the football on weekends. I wasn't, apart from, I suppose, Origin, there was a whole stack of players weren't eligible. The 95 World Cup, a whole stack of players weren't eligible, but I didn't really.
I remember not liking the Sharks' inclusion in Super League and thinking
you were a bit older
than
me, I suppose.
Yeah, I didn't like it. And so the 97 season, I didn't really watch. I did watch the grand final, but I didn't watch a single game in 1997 because I didn't like the fact that the Sharks were in the Super League. Having said that, the Sharks joining the Super League, Peter Gow saved us. So they're and if you look at the wages of some of the rugby league players from that era, the rugby league players are still not earning as much as that now, even though it's 24, 25 years later. I remember Tim Brasher getting $1 million contract.
Maybe it's all relative, but I would argue now that the game is completely professional, where back then it wasn't. There were the haves and the have-nots. Who did I hear an interview with? It was the fullback, Luke Phillips, who he went up to I think it was the Cowboys initially.
He was playing for the Cowboys.
He was Canberra. He went to the Cowboys. He didn't get, all the money was gone, and he got a basically cash payments only contract. Andrew Boss was interviewing him on SEN a few weeks ago, basically saying, "Oh, how much do you get as part of Super League?" And he's like, "Nothing." There were the haves and the have-nots. I think there's
the marquee players they went out and got, and the ones that were playing for the clubs that they really wanted them, they went and grabbed them, and then there weren't really enough players to. Luke Phillips was just lucky to be playing at all, really, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, I mean, he had a long and successful career after that. But
didn't he become a referee?
He did. He also got out of refereeing because he wasn't happy with the direction the game was going. So, which was interesting.
He also wanted to keep his eyesight.
Maybe. But anyway, I did chuck on the ARL 96 game because that was along with Jonah Lomu Rugby, which I think came out in, 97 or 98. Was a feature.
Oh, no, Jonah Lomu Rugby was just after the World Cup with 95.
Oh, really? After the 95 World Cup? There you go.
Yeah.
Obviously, you had the better gameplay, but ARL 96 was the rugby league rules. And all the Super League
the ARL Rugby 96 only have the ARL players' names in it. And the other teams just
correct. The other had
and so
fake
he said
names.
Passes it to the fullback.
No, or it had some fake names, and then you change it to you change it to the real names, and then it'd just be like to the fullback, out wide to the winger, But it did have the play-by-play commentary by Ray Warren, Fatty Vorton's head popping up to pay you out whenever you made an error. It was.
It should have been. It's a shame that game wasn't better, really, isn't it? Oh, let's get into this fallout.
Yeah, so looking at the fallout, obviously 15 all tries to Nick Tree Star, Rogers 3 from 3, Healy the field goal right on the death, Fairley 2 tries, could have had 3 or 4, Taylor 3 from 3 and the field goal. We would then carry on to finish 5th, 14 wins, 6 losses, with the asterisks being the forfeit in round 1 and 2 draws, while North Sydney Bears 3rd, 15 wins, 5 losses, 2 draws. And Boldo was saying pre-game that you believe or you saw, what impact did this match have on the final?
Actually, I'm pretty sure none. So if North Sydney had won, they still would have been 3rd. If they'd have lost, they'd have still been 3rd. And I think if the Sharks had won, they still would have been 5th. And if they'd have lost, they still would have been 5th. It actually made no difference in it. But you're not to know that at the time.
Yeah, not. So
you're not to know that.
Anyway, so this was, This
I
is
was
the
going to. Well, I was going to
end
take.
of.
I reckon I know this final series better than you do, William. So I'd love this
Oh, you
final
would.
series.
You
Yeah,
would.
this
You
is.
would.
Yeah, so both teams go on to the final series with the Sharks taking on the Western
Magpies.
Suburbs Magpies and winning 20-12, and that 8 points difference. That just being a little bit ahead more than 6 just makes such a big difference. Beating
We were
a Paul
behind in
Langmack
that match, though. I remember being behind. Yeah,
but we come back and then we're just ahead enough, and then the next week I went to the next match at the Sydney Football Stadium where
yes.
the Sharks beat the Broncos and Willie Kahn kicks it from in front underneath the crossbar and misses. And then I remember this is the first time I was watching a match and the Broncos were down by 8 points with 90 seconds to go and they take the penalty goal. And my very intelligent brother explaining to me the thinking behind why they should have taken the 2 there and why that was the correct choice. And then, the Broncos trying to score at the end. And, of course, that was the match where the Sharks had that epic scrum-based move where Peachy gets the try. All the while on the other side of the draw, you have the St. George Dragons coming through, beating the Raiders and then beating Sydney City and then coming up against the North Sydney Bears who, in round 1, the North Sydney Bears had beaten the Broncos, hadn't they? And so
yes.
And so then the Sharks come up against, so then the North Sydney Bears play against the Red Hot Dragons, and they're a little bit unlucky, I think, in that match, and a little bit injured, and they've also got the week off. So that's around the time when everyone's thinking, the week off's not that good for you, and it certainly burnt the North Sydney Bears. So the Dragons win that match, and then the Sharks go on to play against Manly, and never really look in that 24-0 defeat. No. And then in the grand
Manly
final,
were very good.
Manly were a really good team around that era, and they were unlucky the year before and unlucky the year later.
They only lost 3 games all year, including 1 to us. So that was I think Manly should have got more.
Was that the one where Owen Cunningham gets sent off at Manly?
No, we
was that the year
Shark
earlier?
Park, but
that was the year
earlier. And we won by a reasonable score there.
Yeah, so our record against Manly was okay, but maybe that wasn't what we wanted. And
we took it to them in the 95 first week major semi-final.
Yeah, we lost by a point or something, didn't we?
We lost by 6. Oh, no, lost by 4. It was 24-20. We were leading 20 points to 8 early in the second half. But Manly should have got more out of that period. They should have won the 95 grand final against the Bulldogs. They won the 96 one. They should have won the 97 half a comp grand final against the Knights as well. So they were a very, very good side.
Oddly enough, so that grand final, the Manly versus the Dragons, gets ruined by the just before halftime incident where Matthew Ridge kicks it off short and is tackled, but then isn't tackled, and they let him play on, and then they go on and score to make it 14-2 rather than 8-2. And just completely ruins that match, that moment.
That blew it out.
It's a bit bloody rubbish. But, that's what happened in that era. So anyway, it was a great time to be a Sharks fan, wasn't it? So
I've got a correction for you, though. I don't know if Rugby League Project is incorrect, but they talk about the Sharks Magpies semi-final or quarterfinal being at Parramatta Stadium. I have to look that one up. I remember.
I'm sure it's at North Sydney Oval.
But anyway, so the halftime score was 6-2 in favour of the Magpies. And then obviously we have a much bigger second half to win 20 points.
I was sure it was at North Sydney Oval.
Yeah, I thought so too. I'd have to look up. That one was on Kayo. I'm not sure if it still is, but that's
I think it is still on Kayo. And I'm sure that it was at North Sydney Oval.
Yeah, I thought you were right. But anyway, both us and the Bears were good, but not good enough in this era. Anyway, that concludes this episode of Classic Cronulla Chronicles again.
Yeah, we've almost spent more time talking about the match than it would take to watch it. So
yeah, so go check it out. But next week we've got the bye, so I won't be covering any classic losses or wins for the bye. But we will the following week. I think we play the Bulldogs at ANZ Stadium. So
the Chronicles, I think we are.
Yeah. So I think we might be going to 2007 for that one with an Isaac de Gois put your hands up moment and a famous victory by us on a Sunday afternoon at Homebush Accor, ANZ Telstra, what do you want to call it? But if you do happen to remember this game, if you were there, if you saw the field goal, if you have memories of 96, please let us know. Hit the like and subscribe as always. And in the meantime, up.